Welcome aboard the Starship Dragon. Ignore that screen, because that's what I want you to see right there. I'm Commander Krim, and welcome back to KrimKast. This is episode 5, I believe. And we're going to go over something a little bit interesting today. Something I want to talk about that I think is a unique concept that people probably don't really think of on a consistent basis. In a way, it's sort of like a top 10 list, but not like a traditional like top 10 list. It's more like just a list of things that I've thought about that are something that's rather unique to video game concepts. And particularly in this case, I'll find my words. Particularly in this case, I want to talk about swords in non-RPGs. Now, what does that mean exactly? Well, I would say almost stereotypically, swords as weapons are, swords as opposed to anything else, are typically an RPG, a role-playing game type weapon, right? Think about RPGs in general, whether it be JRPGs or Western RPGs, even like pseudo, like high-tech futuristic RPGs typically still have swords in their games somewhere, right? Think like Final Fantasy franchise, Dragon Quest franchise, Dragon Age franchise. Maybe not so much Mass Effect, but for the most part, a vast majority of times, RPGs are known for having swords as weapons. Well, what about the video games where swords are a weapon, and the game itself is not an RPG? You ever thought about that one? So I think that's what we're going to go over today on this episode. And to give you an example to kind of start this off with, here's our list here. But what I want to start with is over here. I'll get this all like sorted in a second. I want to start off with this one because I feel like this one will kind of get us on the right direction and really define what we're going for here. And we're going to start with Frostmourne from Warcraft 3. Now, I'm aware that Warcraft eventually becomes an RPG in the manner of World of Warcraft, the MMO. But as far as I'm aware, the first time we see a sword of this nature in the Warcraft franchise is here with Frostmourne in Warcraft 3. And the reason this was the first one that came to mind was because Warcraft is a real-time strategy game. And even in the Warcraft universe, there are characters that do wield swords. The footmen use a sword as their primary weapon, as well as a few other things. But the Frostmourne was like the first sword that I'm aware of in the Warcraft universe that is like a plot critical weapon. Something that is very important to not just the overall arcing story of Warcraft 3, but from what I understand, a deep part of the lore that expands into the rest of the Warcraft lore. So this one will get a bit of a pass, even though I'm fairly certain. I mean, I don't know for sure because I've never played World of Warcraft, but I'm pretty sure that Frostmourne exists in World of Warcraft. But because this sword originally appeared in Warcraft 3, that's why I want to give this one a notification, or a shout out, I guess you could say. So on the list, let's go ahead and go over here and put the first one as Frostmourne. I think it's how you spell it. Warcraft 3. Okay? The next one I want to talk about, which you saw by accident, but I'm going to go ahead and throw this out here anyway. And if any of you have an opinion or like an idea of what you want to talk about regarding this subject, please feel free to talk about it in the chat. I'm very interested to hear what you all think. But what I'm talking about next is the energy sword from Halo, from the Halo franchise. Do you have an opinion? By all means, go right ahead. Racism? Let's not. the energy sword is like when it comes to first-person shooters, I can't really think of too many prior to technically Halo 1, but more accurately Halo 2, because you don't get to use an energy sword in Halo 1. But I can't really think of too many first-person shooters where you use a sword prior to Halo. Now, I'm sure someone could probably correct me on that one, but I feel like the energy sword is like one of the first swords to appear in a first-person shooter. It's very unique in its design too. It fits in the universe very, very well. You know, in a world where you've got like aliens shooting you with guns, you use a bunch of different weapon styles. You have basically jeeps with a machine gun strapped to the back of it. You know, it's it's very unusual to have a sword in a world that is heavily gun based, right? The OG Elder Scrolls? No, actually, I haven't. So you know, the fact that they've got this energy sword here really makes sense because it's pretty. The only part of this weapon that's actually held is just the handle. Like if without it's sort of like a. It's actually not too different from a lightsaber, really, if you kind of think about it, as far as like what it is. It's the energy sword blades themselves are not. I don't want to say they're not physical because they obviously are, but they're not like solid. Like a solid blade, like a solid metal object of sorts. It's essentially condensed energy, hence why it's called an energy sword. So when the energy sword is turned off, you're just holding this little like horizontal hilt looking thing, and then when it activates it becomes this deadly weapon kind of thing. So that's what that's what I feel makes this a really good weapon, is because it still fits in this universe. In a futuristic, high-tech universe, you can still have a sword. And actually, the energy sword is very, very dangerous, especially in the hands of the Covenant. Average dads, don't start. Don't start. I know what you were going to do. Don't start. You get one opportunity. I gave you a chance to come back before. I will kick you out forever this time. I know you're Mikey's friend. We're not doing this. You understand? Okay, you know what? I'm not even gonna take you the chance. Okay. So yeah. I think this is a fantastic addition to Halo, and really kind of like for as far as gameplay is concerned, it's actually very unique to do, because it's depending on which game you're playing, you actually have like it's even, I'd say it's different than a shotgun blast. I know it wasn't you, Mikey. I'm well aware of who it was. Very almost like a shotgun as far as its range is concerned. It isn't just like a swinging thing. You actually have like a lunge distance, which is the lunge distance is roughly the same as a shotgun. So yeah, you kind of at a disadvantage because you can get shot a lot from range while dealing with a melee weapon, but it is one shot, as far as I'm aware, on pretty much anybody in like a multiplayer mode. And no, I knew who that was. We had seen him before, and he had done similar things to that in the past, Holly. And I had gave him a pass because he was Mikey's friend, but then he pushed it too far, and we're done with that. We banned him a bit back, and then Mikey was doing like was using that name for his stream as well. So I allowed it to be unbanned, and then he came back and then ran his mouth one too many times. So yeah. So that's so second up on the list here is the energy sword from the Halo franchise. Yeah, I know you don't. I'm glad you made your own channel, Mikey, because that I'm not judging you for your choice in having him as a friend, but disassociating with him as far as your stream goes, it's probably a good idea. It's probably a very good idea. Now, you choose to be his friend. That's up to you. I can't judge you for that. I can't, make an opinion on that. That's up to you. But I think that was really smart of you to disassociate that with your stream. So we're moving on from that. And we're going to go with the next one on my list over here, which I didn't get a chance to pull the picture of. But I think this also is right along the same lines as the energy sword from Halo due to its appearance in a first-person shooter. And that is, well, we see it better probably in, let's see, this will work. We'll probably see it better in Eternal. Whatever, we'll just use this picture, this will work. This is a little bit, different than what I had in mind, but I want to focus particularly on this right here, which is the Crucible from Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Ignore these over here. I'm referring to particularly these two here. Darth, we're talking about swords in games that are not RPGs. So, like, in typical fashion, swords are usually considered an RPG type weapon. If you think about a number of RPGs, JRPGs, Western RPGs, etc., they have swords in them in some form. In some form or some way, swords are particularly an RPG type weapon. Well, there are some games that have swords that are not RPGs at all. The case in point, Frostmourne from Warcraft 3, and the Energy Sword from Halo. To give you kind of a brief overview of what we talked about here, in this one, I know that the Frostmourne does appear in World of Warcraft, but I'm giving this a pass because it originated in Warcraft 3. All right, back to the Crucible. This was actually a very surprising weapon to appear in Doom. I wasn't expecting it. When you first get this thing, it is an object that you're sent to find by what the hell's his name? Samuel Hayden. And you pick up this thing. Once you get it back to Samuel Hayden, he turns it on, and it turns into this like awesome looking sword thing, and you eventually get it back and use it in Doom Eternal as a very, very good weapon. But I think this is a fantastic use of like really bringing an energy sword type thing to the Doom universe that you don't really see in Doom. Yes, there is a melee weapon in Doom overall. Like first of all, you could punch a lot if you have the right thing equipped, but also there's the chainsaw. But I feel like a sword itself is unique to or I should say, a sword is something you didn't see in the Doom games until Doom 2016. It looks like a mystical broadsword. Yeah, it kind of does. It's obviously, in case you're not familiar with the lore, in Doom 2016, you get this weapon, this device, this item from hell. Like you actually get it out of from like a special like chamber in hell itself when you teleported to one of their locations in hell. So the fact that it has this kind of like old school, like medieval design, while still having the futuristic, like energy blade type appearance, is very, very apt for the combination of old school tech but still new school tech all at the same time. And particularly, I'm talking about this left half of the screen over here. I think these over here are just like fan-made stuff that's made up, so let's just try to ignore everything on the right-hand side of the screen over here, because I don't think this ever existed anywhere in the games. I'm talking specifically just this over here, because this is what we see in Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Really a two-handed siege. Yeah, it is definitely, it's a two-handed, really great sword, more than broadsword, because it's very large when you play it in game. It's very huge, and with the exception of like some of the larger demons, it literally one slices anything that you're fighting. It's a one shot. So kind of like the chainsaw, but if I recall correctly, in Doom Eternal, it does something different than the chainsaw did in Eternal. Whereas the Eternal drops like a lot of ammo if you kill an enemy with a chainsaw. I think the Crucible drops a lot of health or armor. I forget exactly what it does. I played Eternal one time and I did not like it at all. But the sword itself was actually pretty cool. And then tack onto that, the energy blade itself actually has like demonic runes in the blade. So if you look really close here, there's like all these little like demonic symbols and stuff in here. Very, very cool design as well. I think it's absolutely awesome. So for number 3, we're going to say here is the Crucible from Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Again, if anybody has like an opinion of a sword that would fit in this topic, by all means, I wanted to take a look at it. Next on my list, we're going to go to was it in the first one? I don't remember. Yeah, here we go. The next one is the Sword of Olympus, the Blade of Olympus. This is from God of War, like 2018, but what I'm really referring to is like its original incarnation, which I saw in, I believe it's God of War 1, like the PlayStation 2 God of War 1. I think that's the first time you see it. Obviously, while God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok could sort of be classified as RPG-ish, sort of, because it kind of comes off as an RPG type setup and everything, you know, one could kind of see it that way. I'm more referring to the PlayStation 2 version of God of War, specifically. The Flame Sword of the Emperor of Mankind, Warhammer 40k. Well, yeah, the God of War 2018 is very RPG. I mean, yeah, it's definitely an RPG. I guess I can't get around that. But the PS2 God of Wars, I would not classify them as RPG at all. Definitely hack and slash type thing, because there are no RPG mechanics to the PS2 Gods of War. Just not. So that's why I'm including that in this list, even though we do see it in the 2018 and after God of Wars. I'm referring to this style. I wouldn't call them RPGs at all. Not even action RPGs. The PS2 RPGs, or the PS2 God of Wars, I wouldn't call them RPGs at all. Not at all. So, yeah, I think this is another one that's great to add to this list. I think it's very... It's an awesome looking weapon, too, especially for PlayStation 2 era appearance. And the story behind it, it's really cool. I really like it. I haven't played Ragnarok yet, but Ragnarok is free on PlayStation right now, and so I have downloaded, or at least bought it, as you can for free games. So it's for future gameplay as well. But just saying, that's it's there. It's there. So I would say entry number 4 is. Excuse me, sorry, I don't mean for all the burping. Blade of Olympus from the PS2 era God of Wars. Ragnarok is God of War 5. Yes, not the 5th game, it's the 7th. I'm not surprised. There's some offshoot spin-off PSP games, I think, right? This one is not really one of the most notorious, but I think it's still appropriate for this list. Shit, I already forgot what it was called. It's a little bit more like a large machete. God damn it. It's a little more like a large machete than a sword, but I think it still counts because it's, at least in the hands of when you're using it as a player, it's very, very, very sword-ish. And that is the cleaver from Gears of War. I'm sure you see it in Gears of War Judgment. I think you see it in Gears of War 3, so you probably see it in 4 and 5 also. I've only played Gears 3 once. I haven't played 4 and 5 yet at all. But I do intend to do them all on stream at some point in the relatively near future. But it's definitely a weapon that is very appropriate for this list, and considering Gears of War is a lot of like big, buffy, brute guys slashing through each other and shooting each other and cutting with each other with chainsaws literally mounted on your rifle. This fits in with that very, very well. So let's put that down on this list here. The Butcher Cleaver is what it's called, of Gears of War. Now, you mentioned one just now, the Flame Sword of the Emperor of Mankind. I don't know what that is. Let's take a look. Emperor of Mankind. Here, 40K. Let's see what comes up. Because I don't know this for sure, because I don't know about this part of the 40K lore. I'm going to have to just go on what we see here in some of these pictures. Is this what you're referring to, Darth? Is this the Emperor of Mankind and his sword? I realize he has like faces on his armor. That's weird. That's the exact image? Okay. I gotta say, as far as design goes, it's honestly pretty simplistic. I mean, the cross guard is pretty much the only impressive part of it, with the unique like feather designs. But it's nothing really special. He's like 11 feet tall, so it probably means if the weapon is like, scaled to his size, this is probably a massive sword. So fire is psychic in nature, linked to his abilities. Okay, well, I'll give that his uniqueness. But like the overall appearance of the sword is really nothing special to me. I'm not trying to put it down or anything. It looks like a regular, there's nothing really unique in its design. It looks like a sword. Again, with the exception of the crossguard. And I'm sure there's a ton of lore behind it, kind of like with the Blade of Olympus in God of War, that I look forward to learning more about once I get more 40K knowledge infused into my brain. But okay, this definitely would count for this list, so I am going to put it on here. I'll make this the 6th entry. What is the weapon actually called? Do we have like a name for it? Is it just called the Emperor's Sword? Here's a different view of it. See, this looks a little bit different than this version. I don't know what this is supposed to be. What am I looking at here, Darth? You're a little bit. You're more of my Warhammer lore master than just you know more about it than I do. What is this exactly? This doesn't look anything like his sword here. This is something completely different. It's sort of coming from RPG, so I thought that. Yeah, that's the idea. That's the idea. I'm all for some like ideas for this list. So that's a good one to add to it. It's just called Flame Sword. Okay. Okay, it's just called Flame Sword. Let's just tap that in here. Flame Sword. Sword of the Emperor. Warhammer W40K. Oh, WH40K. I can type, excuse me. Okay. Alright, cool. All right, what's next on my list? That was one that was added for you guys, and I like that's what that's what I like doing. That's what I want to start doing with some of these KrimKasts is coming up with a topic and you guys giving me like your input, your ideas on these things. Oh, with the illustration, Warhammer 40Ks, they're not exact matches from one artist to another. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Next one that I have here. I think this will kind of like tell some story about it, so I think this will be a good one to use for our topic here. Next one is Sento from Mortal Kombat. Specifically MK10 and MK1, which are the ones that we see it most often, like actually mentioned. Yes, we do see Kenshi using this weapon in some of the other Mortal Kombat games, but it's really like mentioned specifically in MK10 and MK1. So that's why I want to use this image here particularly, because this is where Johnny Cage gives Sento to Kenshi in the reborn, recreated universe of Mortal Kombat 1. I'm not thinking of another franchise, but it's not no games at all, despite swords being mandatory in it. There were talks of an RPG that never materialized to my knowledge, and I'm talking about Highlander. Yeah, we're not going to... If it's not in a game, we're not going to talk about it here. What makes this sword unique is unfortunately not its appearance, it's visual design. Its visual design, for the most part, is your pretty typical katana. There's nothing special about it as far as like its appearance. What's special about it is that it harbors the souls, the spirits of Kenshi's family, like generations past, and that's what allows now blind Kenshi to be able to still essentially see, is the souls of Sento speaking to him through the sword. And so that's what makes it a very unique weapon. A weapon that basically only he could use because of his connection to his family and the history behind it and all that other stuff. Sento describes the sword with the soul of his ancestors, MK4 and MK9. Okay, I wasn't sure about that. Like I said, I know Kenshi appears in other games besides 10 and MK1, but I didn't know how often they actually spoke of the sword itself in those other games. But so yeah, that's why this is a definite example of what goes on, or a good example of an entry for this list, because we're not anywhere near close to RPGs at this point. We're talking about fighting games now. Now, that said, swords in fighting games aren't rare. I mean, there's an entire fighting game franchise that is based around weaponized gameplay, weapon fighting, weapon hand-to-hand fighting. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But, Samurai Showdown, I have not played Sam Show. I actually am not even sure I can say I've ever actually seen Sam Show played. And obviously I've heard of it because I actually use the term Sam Show, which is the shorthand version of Samurai Showdown. I'm pretty sure I don't think I've ever seen gameplay of it, though. So I feel that entry number 7 is Sento from the Mortal Kombat franchise. Alright. Speaking of fighting games with weapons in it, we're going to go on to the next entry here, referring to this same concept. And this is while I don't know this franchise extremely well, I do feel like this is like the first weapon I think of when I think of this franchise, right? And that is, of course, Soul Calibur and the Soul Edge. As they say, Samurai Showdown made the old Mortal Kombat games look tame in the violence and gore category. Cool. This is not a very big picture, so we can't like zoom it in here. So just go with me on it for a second. I want to find a better image. This is a it's just an artist rendering, but I think it's still a pretty good one to use considering the character that wields it. Hold up. Are we good? I don't see any dropped frames, but my laptop kind of acted like I'd lost connection. Is everything good on the stream? Is everything good stream side? Like I said, it didn't say I lost frames, but my laptop was being weird. Okay. Anyway, come on, I can find a better picture. It's not like an actual in-game picture of this motherfucker. Here we go. I mean, it's not really great, but it's really more the sword that I want to look at, so this is a good picture of it here. I'll say anything as a prank. But yeah, when I think of iconic swords from, yeah, sure. If you want to go ahead and you can throw the link in the chat. It's fine. I think of like Soul Calibur, and I think of like iconic weapons from Soul Calibur, which granted, I'm not that knowledgeable in Soul Calibur because I haven't played very much of it. But when I think about iconic swords from that series, the Soul Edge is what comes to mind because it's the pure evil sword. It's got a freaking eyeball in it. This is what I think of when I think about all the weapons that are available in Soul Calibur. Now, again, I don't know that much about it, but what I have seen of the gameplay of this weapon being used, it looks unwieldy as hell. It looks like something that Cloud should be wielding because it has that like small hilt, massive blade style appearance. I said you could actually put it in the chat, but I wish I could pull up my Discord here. So that's where you said it. Okay, here we go. You're also going to be able to shut. Well, it's fine. It's fine. Anyway, so here's Soul Edge. You can actually you can really zoom in. Holy crap! But yeah, there's the eyeball. Yeah, it's all like creepy bone. But this is definitely what I think of. Now, the only other person that I know a lot about in regards to Soul Calibur is BMO. I asked her I asked her opinion, what is an iconic weapon from the Soul Calibur franchise? And she mentioned Soul Edge and the titular name Soul Calibur, which apparently are antithesis of each other. Like Soul Edge is the evil and Soul Calibur is the good. I have to go on her word on that because I don't really know that much about Soul Calibur, the actual weapon. This is the one that really just absolutely stands out to me when it comes to Soul Calibur. So, 8th entry is Soul Edge from Soul Calibur franchise. Okay. Next one is one that is I'm also not too familiar with, but I feel it should definitely count because it's definitely an iconic weapon, I feel. and that is Rebellion. Why do I always find the smallest fucking pictures? From Devil May Cry. Soul Edge is a cursed sword born from the guilt of his wielder. He used to be a paladin and went dark looking for the murder of his father, eventually getting consumed by the sword and becoming that monster you saw. In a later game, the truth was revealed. He accepted finally that he was the murderer the entire time, and accountability frees him from the curse. He goes on a quest for redemption. It's been a long time since I've played Devil May Cry, so if there's a more iconic weapon, a more iconic sword, I should say, in Devil May Cry, by all means, feel free to correct me. But this is what comes to mind when I think of Devil May Cry, and the sword is the Rebellion, because I'm pretty sure it's the one Dante uses and gets in Devil May Cry 1. The one where it, like, impales him and he, like, pulls himself off the sword by, like, actually lifting himself up with the blades, like, going through his body as he's standing up. Yeah, that's what I think of. That's the scene that really, like, sticks with me the most when it comes to Devil May Cry and the sword itself. Now, I know there's a ton of other types of weapons of this manner, but this is the one that comes to mind. Dante's more into guns. Yeah, well, Dante's bro. You're talking about Virgil. I mean, I feel like Rebellion is more iconic than, I don't even know what Virgil's weapon is called, but more iconic than Virgil's weapon. And that's probably just because I feel Dante is more iconic than Virgil. And that's, again, just my opinion. I feel like but maybe not iconic is the wrong word. I feel Dante is more memorable than Virgil. Because when I think about Devil May Cry, I think Dante more than I think of Virgil. Just like Sonic more iconic than Shadow. I agreed. I mean, my favorite character from Sonic is Knuckles, though, but that's just because I have a weird thing in my head. But that's what comes to mind when I think of a Devil May Cry. So, number 9 will be Rebellion from Devil May Cry. Alright, and then next I want to talk about is these last two are a little bit of a stretch for me, but I feel they should still count because I kind of needed a couple of filler spots, sort of. The Z sword, not the one from DBZ. What is the Z sword? The Z sword from DBZ is the only one I can think of. What is the other one? Or what is that one? It counts because, yeah. Granted, I'm not a huge Minecraft person. I have played it. It's not anything that I like. I'm not one of the biggest fans of it that play it a whole bunch and spend a lot of time playing. I know Minecraft is extremely... It ranks up there with, like, Fortnite as far as, like, one of the most popular games of all time. But I still feel that it deserves its position because Minecraft is not an RPG. It can be seen that way in some sort, but it's very sandboxy and not at all RPG. And I feel this sort of counts as an iconic weapon because of the iconic nature of Minecraft itself. So that's why I decided to include that one here. Entry number 10 is the Diamond Sword. Oh my god, I can't spell. Minecraft. A Z sword from Mega Man Zero. Alright, well, let me see what that's all about. Something like this? Is that what you're talking about? Like, see a couple of different swords that Zero is holding, but it looks like in most of these pictures that I'm looking at, this is the one that really, this style here is what stands out the most. That kind of a wide lightsaber appearance. Yeah, a lot of these images that I see that have it is very much like this, with the wide stance, or the wide blade. I mean, I haven't played any of the Mega Man Zero games, so I'm having to go on just these images here. Energy saber with elemental attributes. Okay. Yeah, it's definitely, all these pictures that I see are very cool in their appearance, their design. Look really awesome. I don't know if this is just for the sake of effect, but whatever this particular image is really cool. I like how it's like almost like it's a sword in like this point, but it has like a whip appearance too. I think that's really cool. Virtual sword is called Yamato. You know what? I think I knew that. I think when you point that out, Per2, I think I knew that because I remember the name matching the name of the the infamous battleship from World War II. Japanese battleship from World War II. Zero Saber in the Mega Man X games, also called the Z Sword, even though it's not the same look. The second one is the Mega Man X series. Okay. Because, I mean, this is... While this has like this feels more like it's a whip than a sword, as opposed to like... Oops. As opposed to like this... God damn it, where'd it go? As opposed to this image here. Where this is definitely very sword-like. And this is a very fascinating looking design. I think this is really cool. Okay. Let's put that in here then. There's a motion that makes it look like a whip. Okay. I kind of figured. V-Sword, Mega Man, franchise. Okay. Alright, then we go next on my list here. This is the last one I have. These are like the ones that I came up with while my mind was just, doing its thing. There are a number of swords that are probably better, possibly more iconic in this game I'm referring to. But this is like the one that I really enjoyed playing the most in the series. And that is the Young Wolf's Howl in Destiny. Destiny 1 specifically. If I recall correctly, this sword was the first sword the first exotic sword, rather, in Destiny. You get it in the Rise of Iron expansion, and it was pretty much what you get for completing the main campaign. What was different about this sword compared to other swords of Destiny 1 at the time was that you didn't just like swing it like a regular sword to do your damage. You also like did an overhead like slam, and when you slammed the ground, it left a small like patch of fire around. So even if your attack doesn't kill what you're slicing, the damage over time from the fire was really, really good and lasted a good long time as well. So you really could like crank up the DPS when you're like fighting a boss and getting up near a boss. You start like slamming your sword down a bunch of times, and then like once the sword expires, you run away. He's still burning because the fire that comes from the sword still lingers for a good long bit. Now again, there is a ton of swords that have existed since this sword came out in Destiny 1 that are probably considered much better, probably more iconic. But this was the one that really stood out to me when I thought about, well, Destiny, what about swords in Destiny? And the Young Wolf's Howl is one that really just like grabbed my attention more than any others. Now there is some that actually like shoot, or like they actually fire out a projectile. What I can think of is I want to call it the Dark Drinker, but I don't think that's correct. But it's a void weapon that you actually pull the trigger on and you sling it, and you like sling the sword, and an actual void projectile comes from the blade and like fire. And it works like a sort of like a rocket launcher, and does a lot of damage in an area around a target. So having a ranged sword is really cool if you really think about it. Mine goes burr, clap, clap, clap. Mine goes burr, clap. What? You had an environment impact based on the move used. Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's like the sword itself was considered solar elemental, which is basically fire. So even if you attacked with it regularly, it would considered fire elemental or solar elemental. But when you actually slammed the ground, it created a fire pool underneath it that damaged enemies over time that were either in it or walked through it. So, and at the time this sword came out, this was the only one that could do that. Other swords would still slam the ground from an overhead like swing, but it was just like the impact, and that's all you had. Oh, so got it. So yeah, this is my last entry that I came up with as far as swords outside of RPGs. This one, sort of like the Frostmourne, kind of is like just squeaking by the criteria, because I mean, Destiny, while it is a first-person shooter, kind of falls under the RPG mentality because it is an MMO. It does have leveling system. It does have RPG mechanics, so technically it kind of is an RPG. So, but I give it the leeway because it is more first-person shooter than it is RPG. So it kind of like voids what my argument was earlier about one of the other swords that was mentioned, but yeah, so we at least got a dozen entries in here. This was pretty good. Young Wolf's Howl. Young Wolf's Howl. Destiny, particularly Destiny 1. Young Wolf's Howl did not appear in Destiny 2. Sauron is a sword, Master Death Knight, like the Lich King, and interestingly also fire rather than ice. So yeah, these are the ones. The 10 of these are ones that I came up with, and then you guys came up with the Z Sword, and what was the other one that you talked about? Oh yeah, Flame Sword from 40K. So these are 12 examples of swords that are rather notorious, rather iconic, from games that are not particularly RPGs. Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. I mean, they're, as far as I'm aware, those games are not RPGs. So yeah, those would count too. Sure. What are we? And the point of them is the sword's got to be like iconic to the game itself. It's not just I specifically mentioned Frostmourne from Warcraft 3 as opposed to like the sword that's used by the footmen, because it's just a sword. The Frostmourne is a named plot important weapon. The energy sword is a plot important weapon in most cases. Shadow of War. Yeah, I've only played a little bit of. I think it was the demo of. It might have been Lords of Shadow. It was a Castlevania game. I'd have to see it in order to remember which one it was, but I only played a demo of it. But yeah, so unless anybody in chat's got another suggestion, I'll call this a list here, because I think this is pretty good. We had Frostmourne from Warcraft 3. These are not in any particular order, by the way. These are sort of like just the order that my brain came up with them. Frostmourne from Warcraft 3 specifically, the Energy Sword from the Halo franchise, the Crucible from Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Sword of the Rings. Oh, my bad. The Blade of Olympus for the PS2 Gods of War, which I know it does exist in the later ones as well. The Butcher Cleaver, particularly from, I think, Gears of War Judgment, Gears of War 3. Darth brought up this flame sword, the Sword of the Emperor from 40K. Sento from the MK franchise. Soul Edge from Soul Calibur, obviously. Rebellion from Devil May Cry. The Diamond Sword of Minecraft. Z-Sword from the Mega Man franchise. And the Young Wolf's Howl from Destiny 1. So, again, not really like a top 10 or top 12 in this case list, but just like 12 swords in RPG in games that are not RPGs. I think this is a pretty substantial list. If you have any ideas, feel free to throw them down in the comments down below. I wouldn't, if there's enough entries, maybe we'll have another chat about this in a future episode. But that's going to be it for the KrimKast. If you're watching live right now on Twitch, don't worry, the stream is not ending. We're going to be jumping into Grandia here in just a little bit. But I need to say goodbye to YouTube first, so we're going to do that. If you are watching right now on YouTube, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know your opinions on this list and other entries that you might have. I do want to say one thing I didn't talk about in this list as far as like the criteria for this list is we are not including lightsabers from the Star Wars franchise, even though there are plenty of them in video games, because while there are a number of Star Wars video games, obviously, Star Wars itself is not a video game franchise. Star Wars obviously started as a movie, so while there are a number of unique lightsabers in Star Wars video games, we will not include them in this list because they are part of a franchise that is not specifically video games. So that's why we're not going to include anything from Star Wars, just so you know. Shadow War, when it came out, full triggered a game apocalypse because they went too far with the predatory tactics with loot boxes and all, causing governments to become very interested in top pissing players off. Ew. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, as I said. If you'd like to catch us live, we're live over on Twitch. 4K isn't video games originally either. That's true. 40K originally was like... I mean, you're right, but I'm willing to give it a pass. I'm willing to give it a pass because I think 40K has enough video game influence to be considered a video game franchise, even though it doesn't originate that way. Star Wars. Here's my differentiating definition between 40K and Star Wars. When I think of Star Wars, I don't immediately think of video games. I think of the movies. I think of the TV shows and things like that. I don't immediately think of the video games. When I think of 40K, I do think more video games than I do pretty much anything else. And that's sort of because I experienced 40K originally in video games, even though there were other forms of media, like books and whatnot. So, again, this is just like my perspective on it. So, I'm willing to give 40K a pass on that one. But yeah, if you'd like to catch us live, we're over on Twitch at twitch.tv/CommanderKrim. If you'd like to see this video again over on YouTube, youtube.com/@CommanderKrim. As always, a special appreciation goes out to the men and women of the United States military, both at home and overseas, as well as police officers and firefighters across the country. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. You're all true heroes. When I think of Star Wars 40K, I think of the universe on all media as a whole. I guess it depends on each. Yeah, it's just, I don't immediately think of, like, I don't immediately think of Star Wars as a video game franchise. Whereas 40K, I could lean more toward video games than anything else. So yeah, that's going to do it for this one. I will see you all in the next one. Hope you enjoyed this KrimKast.